Listening who feels like everything is falling apart? What's the first step of rebuilding without pretending to be okay?
First is to stop pretending. So it's safe, and this is your permission slip not to feel the need to pretend. When we are honest with ourselves and let ourselves admit that we're not okay, it is so freeing because you're not jumping into, we don't have to rush to fix or perform. We just allow ourselves to be where we are.
Lara is a mother, guide, and entrepreneur. She supports women in reclaiming their worth and leading from a place of embodied truth. Her work is rooted in a deep knowing that we're entering a new era of leadership, one defined by softness, depth, and energetic wholeness, rather than performance or perfection. Through her coaching, she creates space for women to return to their feminine energy, the part of them that knows how to soften, slow down, and lead from alignment rather than force. She walks beside women as they choose to live in truth, not just talk about it. She leads by living the way, embodying the journey herself. Welcome, Lara. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Now, I am pronouncing your name correctly, right? It's Lara or is it Lara?
No, yeah, Lara works.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today and being willing to speak about removing the mask and leading with softness. I'm so excited to see how this conversation is going to unravel. I do have an icebreaker for you before we get started. So, are you ready for the icebreaker?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let me adjust this. Okay. So, when you think about softness, what's the one thing in your life right now that feels soft, whether it's a moment, a ritual, or even a blanket?
I think my like schedule. So like my schedule is, and when I mean by soft, I know we'll get into that in more detail, but I truly go through my day in flow. Besides there's some aspects that you have to remain on schedule and on time. I truly intuitively flow through my day. So that's, I spend longer and enjoy my morning coffees. I eat when I'm called to. I, rest when I'm called to. So my entire daily schedule looks a lot more in my flow as opposed to metrics and meeting specific deadlines all the time. So yeah.
Okay. I love that. I love that. Now you got me thinking because I'm like in a different place where I'm flowing, but I'm also very disciplined because I have been waking up very early to go to the gym and I'm trying to lose weight. And, there's a system that needs to be implemented to have the proper nutrients and the proper water intake. And so everything is pretty much for the past month has been timed for me from getting up at a specific time, eating breakfast at a specific time, going to the gym at a specific time. So would you say that that's kind of like going against flow, or is there like,
No, not necessarily. I mean, like, because you know that you need to move your body. That's what you're being called to do at the moment. So therefore, that's the window that you're going to put it in. But for
okay,
me, it's like if that schedule didn't work for you, like if every bit of your body resisted your routine, well then that would be off. You know what I
okay,
mean? Like
okay,
it's a lot different. Like, I have to wake up at 6:30 in the morning and, take my daughter to school. Like,
right.
that's a schedule. But like, there's still school drop off. Like, but other than that, it's making sure you give yourself the time and the space in the small moments that you do have. But, when you're if that's part of your schedule and it doesn't make you feel exhausted all the time and out of
Mhm.
alignment, then that's working for you.
Okay, good. Because I'm like, I don't want to be in my masculine.
But I mean, it's a whole other topic because
Right.
emotionally, like, losing weight, and I know that we're not diving into that on this
Right.
episode, but, like that's weight and everything that we hold is such an emotional survival pattern. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we always have such huge releases and changes in our bodies when we're doing the emotional work, not just the physically moving
Right.
your body and strengthening your body?
Right. Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's a little off topic, but I feel like I wanted to kind of address that. Okay, so you've been going through your own season of unraveling. For someone listening who feels like everything is falling apart, what's the first step of rebuilding without pretending to be okay?
Well, the first is to stop pretending. So it's safe, and this is your permission slip not to feel the need to pretend. Um, you know, when we are honest with ourselves and let ourselves admit that we're not okay, it is so freeing because you're not jumping into, we don't have to rush to fix or perform. We just allow ourselves to be where we are. And when you are honest with yourself, that's such a survival pattern, to do action right away, but to allow yourself for the space for rebuilding and for things to come in. It allows yourself to have your truth as like your primary foundation to build off of.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So let's say someone's going through the motions and they say, you know what? I'm done pretending. Like, I am not okay. And they finally take off their mask. What does that, like, what happens in that moment of facing themselves?
I mean, that's it's pretty scary and vulnerable to say that, right? Like a lot of us don't even realize that we're not okay until we admit that we're not okay. Like we gaslight ourselves. We put ourselves on autopilot to um think that we have it all together, but when we give ourselves the permission to actually feel what we're actually feeling, whether it's sadness, whether it's discomfort, whether it's anger, whether it's grief, when we actually give ourselves permission to feel and let ourselves know that it's okay to feel that in that moment, that is your starting point.
I love that you say that because there was a time in my life where I was really going through a lot of pain. And one day, what I was doing, I was pretty much just denying that I was still being affected by the situation. And one day I just heard in my ear, I just heard God say, can you just admit that you're still hurt? And I was like, and then I finally admitted that I was still in pain from a specific situation. And from that day, like my healing really began to happen. So does I mean, I know that for me, what I feel is that when we pretend and we play this mask, we don't leave room for true healing to happen.
No.
Yeah,
Like,
so it's important for us to do that, to be real with ourselves.
well, and like if you're not, then you're just performing and pretending. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the you're not being real. So therefore you can't heal or unravel anything if you're not actually being truthful.
Right. Okay, so you talk about rage and softness coexisting. This is interesting. How can women give themselves permission to feel both without guilt?
So this is interesting. So, I mean, rage is our strength. Like it is truly our fuel, and it raises up some like visceral, raw, when something really like is inside of us or something, that it's not okay. So like rage is our sovereignty and shaking us awake. Like really and it carries the passion that we need to create change, And softness is what allows us to stay tender and compassionate and open-hearted as we like move through that experience. So when we stop labeling one as wrong or the other one right, they both belong hand in hand. Rage tells the truth and softness holds us as we walk out of whatever that is. So it's not a weakness, that's like a wholeness. Like it's like two parts of the puzzle. And
Mhm.
so you need the rage, the fuel, they call it like sacred rage or the sacred feminine rage. That's our knowing. That's when something is off. That's when something does us wrong. And
Right.
then the softness is how do we do that with compassion, with grace? That's the softness as opposed to allowing us to move through that holding both. You can have both. You can be soft and you can have rage. And rage is not the same thing as anger, but you can also hold anger and rage and softness all at the same time.
Right.
And I think like that's important to trust and to know, like going back to even you like it's okay when you take the mask off and you're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Like you could have both agitation and softness. Like there's like, you know what I mean? Like you can embody both. That's the beautiful thing about, the feminine vessel. We can have multiple emotions all at the same time. That's
Right.
part of our uniqueness. You know what I mean? That's part of our essence. So, it's beautiful to hold both and harness both and acknowledge both and accept both.
And I think that a lot of people demonize or, place these labels upon rage and anger. So, how can someone step out from that place of looking as anger and rage as something that is, sinful by nature or something that we should not be feeling because we should just have love and light, right?
I mean, you know, those feelings, those emotions, those raw emotions are okay as long as it's not tied with bad behavior. Like you can have, if those are your catalysts for change, then that's great. If you take that and then there's negative action associated with those emotions, well, that's different. You can
Right.
have rage and anger and self-contain, that's the difference. It's when they use that as an excuse for bad behavior.
Okay.
So that's like that to me is like the difference. Like, you know what I mean? Like I think it's the behavior that's deemed attached to the emotion. Like if that's, and I think as humans, then that's something that it's self-containment. Like that is a power of us to
Right.
to be able to self-contain. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for breaking it down like that because even me myself, I come from a whole different world and I'm stepping into a place where I'm just embracing both my rage, my anger and my light. I'm realizing that we there's both sides to us. There's two sides to us, right? And it's about embracing those moments and not necessarily condemning myself and saying, oh my God, I'm such a bad person for feeling this way, but actually saying, okay, what are these triggers? Why am I feeling this? And what can I do to kind of transmute and alchemize those, those maybe negative thinking patterns or anger into something that's more useful and helpful?
Well, exactly. It's like if you use it as like a door opener to reflect, you know what I mean? You're like, okay, what are these feelings? Why am I feeling like this? Like, you know what I mean? If you actually use it as a tool, as a sign, as like a flag for you to say, okay, right, something has just hit me. Let's look into this. All that kind of stuff. That's different. When you
Right.
act on that, well, that's a different story. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So softness doesn't always sound strong in our culture. What does it actually mean to lead with softness in real life?
So, softness isn't a weakness, and that is something that has been ingrained in us, culturally, society, you name it. So, it's presence. It's truly presence. It's choosing to act from truth instead of force and lead from alignment instead of performance. So in real life, softness looks like listening before reacting, just like I said, self-containing. You know what I mean? Like it could be staying grounded instead of competing, right? That's back into that masculine energy of competing, and leading from both confidence and compassion. And it's strong because you don't need to prove yourself. Like it just is. Like you are just you. Like there's nothing that you need to prove. So yeah.
Right. So, how does one actually remain in their softness when it looks to be a weakness? Like, how does someone embrace that without looking at it as being considered weak?
I think I mean, that's truly just a choice from you to not internalize it like that. So it's like, okay, first, like what is the truth? Is it a weakness? Why do you feel weak? Once again, if you feel judged, if you feel like self-judgment, if you're worried or there's any shame, if you're worried about how others perceive you, then that's something entirely
Mm,
different going on.
okay.
So, because once again, it's not and or like, right? Like you could be in your softness, you can have grace and compassion and presence and have those other emotions. So it's truly a choice to be present, to be compassionate, to be out of the fear, right? Like women, we drive and we go into this hustle, mode, this boss babe culture. We drive and climb and strive and perform, and all of that isn't in our normal alignment, like wheelhouse. So the second that you catch yourself doing any of those, you have to ask yourself, like, what is the fear? What is the worry? Like, like how am I in my ego? Like what is actually happening that I'm not able to be present, that I'm so consumed by all of this, performance metrics, that's how we are conditioned as society. Like, what's going on there that's not allowing me to be present and to be tender and to have compassion and to be in flow.
Right. So it sounds like being present is kind of like the key factor in maintaining that balance of femininity and or sacred rage and anger and things and all those other emotions. Is that what you're saying?
Well, like I said, like you could have both. They both coexist at the same time. So you can't necessarily be in one or the other.
Okay.
You hold both containers at the same time.
Okay. Sorry. I'm just learning this. I'm understanding.
Yeah.
So you actually mentioned the hustle culture. And obviously this is what we're in. Like you said, this is what we've been programmed to do. These I don't even know how long it's been, maybe the last 10 years where it's just go, go, go and do and be this boss. Why do you think more women are being drawn to a different kind of leadership now?
I think the whole boss babe culture is being dismantled just because women are exhausted. Like we're
Mm,
not meant to live in this constant drive and competition. That's us operating in our masculine energy, even in our feminine operating system, and that's out of alignment. So, in our feminine, and I'm talking energetics, however anyone takes this, there's no competition. So, hustle and perfection might get us results for sure, but it leaves us empty and disconnected. More women are realizing that they want a life that feels sustainable, nourishing, and real. And, here's the thing, we're all leaders. So leadership isn't about a title, it's how you embody your truth and walk your path. And true leadership doesn't cost you your health or your soul. So that's why a lot of women are craving softness and depth and alignment instead of constant driving. So it's not necessarily that they're choosing a different type of leadership, but they can recognize that, right, if it sells my soul and my health, then I'm being led, either I'm being led or I'm leading myself
Hmm.
down the wrong path.
Right. And thank you for sharing that because I was doing another recording with another female, and she mentioned that she had to slow down because she was moving too quickly, and she began to realize that it was just too much. And I'm finding this common, theme amongst the people that I've been connecting with, that the constant movement and the constant hustle and the constant just focusing on work and not focusing on health or mental health has really caused them to go to a full like stop. Like God is saying, or God universe is saying, we need to slow down. We need to really pay attention to our health and our mental health because the constant movement is just unhealthy. And so I'm finding that it's like you said, it is breaking down that system of hustle culture and women constantly trying to do everything and be everything and not lead from softness is really changing. I mean, even in my own life, just yesterday, my daughter's she had a flat tire, and I know how to change tires because I was taught, right? I regret learning because now at one point I was changing tires once a week. Like my tires kept blowing out. It was crazy. And so
That's a lesson from the universe.
yesterday she says, I have a flat tire. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like she's like, but mom, you know how? I'm like, I know, but I don't want to do it. So I sat there, I said, just give me some time. She's rushing me. She's like, come on, let's just go. Let's do it. And I'm like, hold on. When I'm ready, I will get up. So when I got up, all these neighbors were happened to be around that were all men. And I said, there you go. Can you guys help me out? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, you see, perfect timing. I don't want to do this no more. I am tired. I'm tired of changing tires. And so it's just really saying, you know what? I'm okay to receive help. I'm okay to slow down. I'm okay to just be and not have to feel like I need to do something to prove something to someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it
like
was
it's a great skill to have. Like, we all need to be able to take care of ourselves, but when we can sit back and allow others to help us, like when we say that I'm like going back to like, yeah, okay, like I'm okay. Well, then you've literally closed the door off to your entire support system. Like, right? Like
right,
it's like when you don't allow, you're like, yeah, universe, like I don't want to do this. Give it your space. You listen to yourself and you came out and you were in alignment, and there was tons of people who wanted to help. Like going back to the hustle culture, it's like we are, men are on like a solar cycle, like their body, their hormones, like everything is on a 24-hour cycle, and women are on a lunar cycle. So we're 28 days. So like even how uh going back to society and driving and competition, like that is a 24-hour cycle. You wake up, you do it again. You wake up, you drive, you perform, you do it again. That is not how we are physiologically made
right,
to be. That's not in our essence. That's not in alignment. That's not inner flow. So it's like, we have different creative highs and we have more rest days, and then we have different emotions that we're dealing with and hormones that we're juggling, over a longer period of time. So it's also giving yourself that grace and compassion to be like, yeah, okay, I'm resting. Okay, like, doing this next. But yeah, it's a new schedule to sort of embody.
right. And you said something that really stuck out to me. It was when you remove the mask, you make room for your support system. When you say, I don't want to do this or I'm tired, you make room for your support system. Can you talk more about that? Because that is very, very impactful.
Well, you're being truthful. Like that's so many of us are so crippled by saying the truth because the truth is really uncomfortable. It's not like saying that you're not fine allows people to be uncomfortable because then they want to help you or they can't, or like once again, like when you actually admit to the truth and how you feel and share it or not share it or just embody it, like then you actually start having the ripples, right? Like if you're always just closing, if you're not acknowledging your truth, if you're not acknowledging, then nobody could step in to support you, and you also don't allow all that support to come. Like in your hyper masculine, you'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to do it, because I don't want to be an inconvenience. I don't want anyone to help me because like that might be annoying to ask or whatever the case is." And you've just cut off all these men who are jumping at the bit to be of service, right?
Right.
So it's like that's what lights them up, you know what I mean? And so once again, when we don't honor our truth, we literally just slam every single door in front of us.
Wow.
And then we abandon ourselves. It's truly self-abandonment when we don't speak our truth. Because when we're not in our truth, then, once again, it's like, oh yeah, like I really, what do you need help with? And you go, oh no, I got this. I'm fine. You know what I mean? Even that, you're like, oh no, you know what? Meals for a week would be great. Or, whatever the case is. And we're so worried to ask for what we really want and need. And then there's just like a ripple or domino effect, and then we're left feeling unsupported, like we don't have community, like no one asks us, like what's really going on. But we weren't really honest and truthful with sharing it based on our own fears of performing and judgment. It's a circle.
Right.
It's a vicious circle and cycle that we get trapped into.
Right. Wow. So good. So good. So, Lara, that was so, so impactful because I have found myself in a place where I kind of, it's not that I pretend that I'm okay, or maybe it is a pretend, but I just, like you said earlier, I don't want to be an inconvenience to other people. And so if I am going through a situation or I'm feeling some type of way or just frustrated or angry, I tend to just keep it to myself. And if someone asks me, how's everything going? I'm so accustomed to giving the auto response, that auto generated response, that co-pilot response where it's just like, I'm fine, I'm okay. But in reality, I want to say so much, right? But I finally have found a few people, a handful of people that I can be very vulnerable with and open with. And let me tell you that these people have made it so easy to like navigate this journey of just coming into my femininity and really just embracing everything about me. And I say this to say is because once you start removing that mask, I want our listeners to know that your support system will really come. It's like you said, you make people uncomfortable to say, okay, do I have the space and the capacity to respond to what you need, or can I find someone else? So I thought that was very, very powerful that you mentioned that.
No, and it's huge. Like, people who are meant to truly see you are finally able to see you once you can start speaking your truth. And it's
Right,
very freeing once you're able to take that mask off and let people in. Vulnerability
right.
takes a lot of courage.
It does. It really does. It is. I actually released a podcast, an episode at the beginning of my journey where vulnerability is really like a strength. It really is. And, coming from a place where I felt like I had to be the tough guy and, do this, do that, learning vulnerability was very, very hard for me. But when I began to open up, it was just like all these emotions came out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so emotional. But it's beautiful. It's all beautiful. To me, it is.
Well, it's scary too, right? Like when you like not just vulnerable with other people, but going back to the very first, question, it's scary to admit what you're actually feeling, right?
Right,
Like even like self vulnerability. It's like, right,
right,
okay, this is
right,
actually what's going on with me. Really, not just, it's like peeling back the layers, right? Like sometimes you can go for a feeling wheel, which shows different emotions, and you're like, okay, right, well, the real is even from anger. It's like the real root of it is sadness. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you actually like peel back the layers and are vulnerable with, the different emotions that you're feeling all at the same time, it helps figure out, what actually is going on in the root of that shadow or that wound that you're processing.
Right. So beautiful. So if someone was listening and they feel stuck, whether it's chasing success or their healing process, how can they start practicing alignment instead of force?
Start by actually coming back to your physical body. What is your body telling you? We get so confused and flipped over when we disconnect what we're actually physically feeling to what our mind is telling us. And so when you can start noticing, paying attention to what feels heavy, what feels forced, what feels draining, going back to even going to the gym, right? Like if like what does that feel like to you? What does it feel like? And then you can compare it to what feels natural, what feels in alignment, what feels light, what feels expansive, what makes you dance. You know what I mean? Like that when you can start by just paying attention. That's truly all it is. You're like, okay, right. I feel stuck. Okay, let's break down each activity, each thought, and what does your body tell you? Like alignment is truly about choosing what actually nourishes you and not what looks good on the outside.
Mm, mm,
It doesn't mean like doing nothing, but it means doing the things that are true to you and feel right for you. And when you act from alignment, life moves with you instead of against you. And that, so many times, even in business, like there's so many entrepreneurs that are like, okay, like, they feel like they're, going on that uphill battle. And you're just like, okay, well, what does it feel like? And you get to really feel, you're like, okay, right. Now there's a different story of just like, ripping the band-aid and doing, things that you're nervous about doing, but they're
mhm.
not hard, right? They're more, that's in your head. But like it's beautiful when you can sort of say, okay, right, like it's so wonderful when you're in alignment and then all of a sudden the universe just plants all these conversations in front of you, right? Like you're like, okay, right, I was sharing my truth, I felt really good, and like look at these doors and opportunities that come up, right? So it's like when you can actually start recognizing how free life feels when you're actually in your flow, when you're flowing as opposed to fighting every step of the way.
Right.
Yeah, but it's starting by noticing and coming back into your body and sort of and acknowledging and noticing where it feels in your body, like okay, I have a pit here or I'm coughing or whatever the case is, like start recognizing what actually is going on for you.
Right, right. I love that because I want our listeners to know, especially when it comes to alignment, that there really is this freedom. And of course, not everything is going to be easy, right? Not everything, there's still going to be challenges and ups and downs, but there's a peace like within your soul, within your mind, within your spirit that says, I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
Like I am in the right place. And I've noticed that, like just the difference from where my life is now to where I was maybe like 3, 4 years ago, where there was just no joy, there was no peace. Everything was really about performance. But now I'm in a place where I feel free. I even said it, I was saying it to the other day. I'm like, I feel like I'm in such a good place. Like, I feel aligned because I feel free. Like, I feel these things that I wasn't feeling before. And, often we question some decisions that we may have made or things that we've done. And the feeling that I have is just confirmation for me that I made the right decisions.
Well, and that's the thing, like, you know what I mean? Like, somebody's like, okay, would you do something different? And you're like, no, like that felt right for me. And it's all for my highest good. So, like like so we're gonna see how this sort of like unfurls or pans out. But yeah, like it makes a difference and you do feel a lot lighter.
Yes, yes. So, for the listener who feels like they're still in the rubble, what's one reminder you want them to carry about hope softness, and starting again?
So, rubble is not the end. It is truly the beginning,
Mm,
and it is truly the soil for what's coming next for you. So, even if you feel broken or messy, your softness and your truth are still with you and they'll always guide you. Really, like think of softness as like that feminine intuition, right? Like that is a true way to define softness. It's, hope doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. Like sometimes it's just showing up for yourself one small step at a time, and you're allowed to begin again and slowly and be still and just, give yourself grace and compassion to sort of rebuild and move forward.
right. So good, Lara. Thank you so much. How can our listeners find you? How can they connect with you? Tell us more about that.
The best way to connect with me is through my website, so www.larabokove.com, and then all socials, but you can also just Google Lara Bokovay and I'll populate. There's only one of me, so yeah.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. And I'll be sure to include your information into the episode so that people can find you and connect with you and learn more about leading with softness because it's important for today's world.
It's huge, and especially so many female entrepreneurs out there. Like it's a big rewiring to figure out what's out of alignment and sort of, deconstructing the programming that we've sort of been, taught and conditioned for
Right.
the last couple centuries.
Right. And I think it just came from a place of ego, like trying to prove that I can be just as effective and efficient as, the male figure, but we have our limits. We have our
You can't
limits.
you can't compete with someone who's physiologically wired entirely different than you. And
Right.
and that is just, I think that's the main thing for, everyone to internalize. It's like, no, 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 like, yeah, you can be as successful, but it doesn't feel the same, right? It doesn't feel the same depending on what you want for yourself.
Right. And that one may be a hard pill to swallow, but you have to, like she said, internalize that because it's the truth. Thank you so much, Laura. This has truly been a pleasure.
Thank
Hopefully,
you,
you will be
Giovanna, for
back
having
on
me.
soon, and I will talk to you soon, okay?
Perfect.
All right, talk to you soon.